It's kind of offbeat. It is offbeat. And my wife, I played it for the other day. She goes, well, this is weird, but it's kind of interesting.
Hmm.
Anyway, so I'm just encouraging people to maybe go through their CD collections and find old stuff. I don't know if the Salt Wives even still exist. They were still playing as of 2019. But anyway, I'm not recommending the Salt Wives. What I'm recommending, I guess, is that we can find some things that maybe we forgot, or maybe, I used to go to Nashville all the time because my kids live there, and I have several CDs of people I bought who I hardly remember why I even have the CD, but sometimes it's pretty cool to do that.
Yeah, especially because I used to get so many
Promotion,
weird stuff at
right?
work.
Yeah.
So in one of those, speaking of that, this has been a little while since I uncovered this, but there's this band called Stos Virats, and they're a Czechoslovakian ska reggae band, and they sing in Czechoslovakian, but
Right.
in not knowing the words doesn't matter. It's so vibrant and it's so from a different angle. It does not sound like island music, but it's got the same musical structures. But anyway,
Right.
yeah, for instance, I haven't thought about that thing in years, but I've reduced my CD collection substantially, but I've still got about 200, and it's the prime of the best of my favorites. So there's a lot of good stuff down
Yeah,
there.
absolutely the case. Well, we've got a lot more to get to. Let's take a quick time out and get back to part two with big stars and big moments and recommendations and the like. We'll do that coming up next, right here on Danny and Tim's Music Scene, part of Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday, presented by Cinematic Visions.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Always great to catch up with Dr. Brad Whittle of Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. Everybody wants to make every year a great one, mentally and physically, and certainly ASFCA can help in that regard.
Chiropractic, acupuncture, physiotherapies. We're going to address the body and the mind to keep you in great shape. With winter moving into spring, we don't want to have the opportunity to get hurt or to be slow and not do what we used to do, right?
Absolutely right, and you can do that in a variety of ways.
We can. We love looking at the body and how it moves, looking at the posture and how it holds us to be strong, to be safe, and really to help us do those things we love to do.
The wide variety and range of services you can get helps in that regard at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. 7 locations all around the Kansas City area. Find the one that's most convenient for you. And for more information, visit asfca.com/Danny. That's asfca.com/Danny. We're here at the 23rd Street Brewery with Matt Llewellyn. And Matt, basketball's over, football's still a few months away, but there's always fun to be had at the 23rd Street Brewery.
Absolutely. We've always got something going on here. The games are always going on. It's a great place to come enjoy everything out on the patio. Beautiful scenery out there. Great beer. I've got a great brewer, great food. It's always fun here at the brewery.
And the atmosphere is great and friendly and warm, too.
We always want to make sure you're a lot happier when you leave than you were when you came in.
Always fun here at the 23rd Street Brewery at 23rd and Castle. Make sure to come by when you're in Lawrence. If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business to Kansas City's #1 variety podcast, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you. Welcome back, and we're weaving our way through various topics here. Danny and Tim with you. Tim Finn, you can hear on the bridge, 90.9 on Fridays. That's great. We're glad to have him here every other week on Wednesdays. And, something that's going on as the years go on is decisions to be made about, who can still go out and deliver the goods and so on and so forth. And I guess Willie Nelson might fit into that category. He just turned 91 this week, Tim, and he's still out there getting after it. He did a recent CD where he contributed with Billy Strings, and so sometimes good, sometimes not, but he's always kind of relevant.
Yeah, and I think I think he's just becoming more revered and deservedly so because one of my friends watched him. Willie was on this Stagecoach music event over the weekend that was aired on, I think it was Prime, and I haven't seen it. I hope they replay it. I'm sure they will. But Post Malone was on doing country covers, and people who were like, "Oh my God, I thought I hated this guy, but that was wonderful." So there's it seems really intriguing. But Willie was on, and more than a couple people said, "Oh, I adore him, but I hope he's okay. He didn't look right." I haven't seen it, but I will say that there are times I've seen him over the past 20 plus years where he's there, he's present, and other times he looks tired, and because he's that old and he tours relentlessly. So not to make too much of it, but he is 91, and yeah, I'm just thinking somebody posted he's the greatest American songwriter ever, and I stopped to think about that, and I thought I can't argue with that. He's been doing it for so long. I mean, his output is prodigious. Like, no one can match his output. He's still writing new stuff, and there's always a quality to it. So yeah, I mean, I think of the ones that I grew up with. I'm immediately go to Stevie Wonder and Paul Simon, but like, yeah, Willie kind of overshadows all of them. Just the eras he went through and the great songs he wrote that, you know, he didn't even perform. So man, he just fills a big part of my music universe, and everyone's just hoping that he stays healthy for a long time.
We do indeed, and someone who obviously has passed by about a decade now or more is Johnny Cash, but his music lives on, and he is now going to be back in the limelight per se. It's another article I found in The Guardian, as this summer his son is going to put out a project of undiscovered demos that he did in the early 90s, right before or just before he got involved with Rick Rubin, and he did that big comeback thing with which was a real renaissance and dark and actually super cool and made him relevant again. But these are things that had never been released, and he's putting it together with Marty Stewart and Dan Auerbach from the Black Keys, and they're doing the musical parts because it's a very spare demos of just him singing. And they've released one song which was called Well, All Right, and it's about Johnny Cash. It's fictional, I assume, but maybe not, meeting a woman in a laundromat, and it's 2.5 minutes long, and it's funny, and it's a cool song, and it's the single for that. That's out. You can find that, Johnny Cash, Well, All Right. It sounds like an interesting endeavor. It keeps his name relevant and alive. The new album will be called Songwriter, and it'll be out in June, and great people on it. Sounds like an interesting project to me.
Yeah, I'm all for the re-release of older stuff, although I'm skeptical when they say, well, yeah, this has been lying around for 40 years. Like, you knew it was there. You just were waiting for the right time, but that's fine. And as long as it's something that you feel certain that the artist now gone would be happy having released, because there's some stuff that's not the case, and it's just people making money. So this sounds
right. It's like whenever, I don't think I've ever watched a movie where it says on when they released it on DVD or whenever, however you do it now, it'll say director's cut. I'm like, no, he cut it for a reason.
Right.
Alternate endings. No.
Right. You have to be just a really slavish devotee and want to suck up every moment. I mean, I guess I get that, but I don't have time for it.
Right. Anyway.
And also, I interviewed his son, John Carter Cash, once. It was before Johnny died, but after June died. And anyway, he's a real smart guy. He respects the family name and tradition. So I'm sure this is legitimate, and it's respectful and really well done.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and the song is just fun. I mean, if you want to have 2.5 minutes of goofy double entendre fun about him meeting a woman in a laundromat, it's really cool. Well, somebody and some band that I really don't have that much interest or affection for is Bon Jovi. Certainly, a couple of their albums anthems are, are fun to listen to every so often if you haven't heard them last week, but they have a Hulu project out, a 4-part documentary series, and so he's out and about, and I heard him on Fresh Air with Terry Gross on NPR last night, and it's a very good interview. She could interview the mailman and make him actually interesting. And I would say the interview is probably more interesting than the documentary. To me, I don't know if I'm going to watch it, but it's on Hulu. They obviously have sold millions and millions of records. They have a new record. I heard a couple of tracks off it. Terry was nice about playing them. There's nothing special about them to me. We talked about Huey Lewis last time and about his hearing, and John Bon Jovi a couple of years ago took a gigantic risk with extremely sensitive vocal cord surgery, which can go badly. And apparently, is working for him. It's still a work in progress. So I think a lot of people will probably be absorbing this Hulu project. I don't know if I will, but it's out there.
Yeah. So I started watching it. And speaking of director's cut, somebody needed to get in this thing and give it a real mean shearing, because it's over 4 episodes. It's more than 300 minutes long. So it's 5 hours. The Tom Petty doc about his life and career was just under 4 hours, which was perfect because he's Tom Petty.
Right.
Sorry, Bon Jovi's not Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So there's there's this laboriousness to it and this repeating of things, it gets a little vainglorious. It's very, it's almost like a vanity project. So I'm 2.5 episodes in, and my wife sat down to watch a little bit of it because she's interested in just music, but she's like,
right.
Can we move on? Like, okay, we don't need to hear for 5 or 6 minutes what it's like when the first time you hear that your song went to number 1. Yeah, I had to talk to everybody. It's just like, and just because you have the footage doesn't mean you have to put it in the movie. But 2 things that came up that were interesting were their manager, Doc McGee, who sort of swept in and saw what they were as they were just arising in New Jersey, and then put them on the path to major stardom. He got caught up in this drug scandal where he and somebody else were caught with 20 tons of marijuana. And this is back in the 80s. I mean, 20 tons would be a problem, I think, even now.
Right.
It wouldn't stop you on the wrist. So, but they talked him, he and his lawyers got together and they talked the authorities into no prison time, but he would do a lot of anti-drug stuff. And John Bon Jovi says he was very much against drugs, never did drugs. He tried to use alcohol in moderation. So they did some of that domestically, and then they went to Moscow. This was in 1988, and did a big, kind of like rock against drugs and substance abuse with bands like Motley Crue. Imagine what the flight over there was like. It was not, they weren't practicing what they were going to preach. But It was interesting how they pulled that off. This was before the wall went down, not long before. So that was interesting. I knew little about that. And then there was this show they did in Guadalajara, Mexico, right around 1990. It was the last of a monster tour. And college students overtook the stadium. They were protesting something. So it got really sort of sketchy and edgy, and they wondered if they were going to be trapped in Mexico. And anyway, they pulled it off. Did 2 shows in one day. And that's when the band just said, we're shutting down now because we really can't stand each other. So this is kind of where the story parts. Right. It picks up with their 2022 tour, and where he's talking about his vocals. It's he's very affected by the things he can't do anymore. So that's also interesting and relevant. How guys, we talk about this. You get older, and your body will let you know when it's time, and his is letting him know, and he's struggling with that. So there are elements to this that are interesting, but and if you're a big fan, right, you will love it. I mean, I forgot just how huge they were for a while. But it's but it's just so much. You can almost fast forward it. Like, okay. I mean, it's just so much redundancy and repetition.
Right. But it's there. If you're a big fan, you'll probably absorb it and enjoy it. And you can always go back to past times if you're worried about Willie Nelson being 91 or whatever. And just released for American consumption after many years is and I'll take any excuse to bring up Mark Knopfler, is the 1996, well, it was really it's a concert, but it's done for television, the BBC, in 1996, right when Mark Knopfler first released his first solo album, Golden Heart. It has several songs from that, which is sort of if you were a Dire Straits fan, it's this solo album to absorb because it's much heavier and much more guitar. But anyway, there's strings and there's great guests like Jules Holland and Sonny Landreth, and Mark is young and playing fantastically, and his band that he still has, most of the guys in it, are there looking very 90s-like, and Richard Bennett is his side guitarist, who was the musical director for Neil Diamond for years. Anyway, it's a beautiful piece. I can highly recommend it, and you can find it in full now for the first time in the United States. You used to go on there, and it'd say, not for viewing in the United States. But not anymore. It's live in London from